Would he actually do it? Good morning, I hope everyone's well today. Thank you for watching as always. Keir Starmer hates free speech. Never mistake anything he says for thinking he does support free speech. There's been rumblings this year that he would ban X, or he wants to ban X, and he used child protection issues as the reason for him wanting to ban X. That's a lie. It's because he doesn't like the fact that we all have digital megaphones and microphones on the interweb to amplify what we're saying, amplify our message, and they cannot control the government narrative. That is what it is all about. Now, previously I've mentioned I don't think he's going to try it while Trump and JD Vance are running America. I think the consequences would be too severe. But I want to share a few things here first of all. We've got this from Ed Davey. There was nothing British or glorious about your nasty, intolerant vision of our great country, Rupert. This is against Rupert Lowe. And then Restore Britain saying they're all terrified. That's the first thing. Now, I can't actually locate the tweet, but I think Rupert Lowe or somebody associated with Restore Britain is imploring and begging JD Vance and Elon Musk to stop Keir Starmer banning X in the United Kingdom if they were to go that far. This is why I think if Starmer's going to do it, he won't move until after Trump and Vance are out of the White House. However, I think Vance has got the next election in the bag, but that's just me. And then we move on to this one here, just to remind ourselves regarding Keir Starmer and his stance on free speech. This from a man who wants X banned. He has had 1,600 Brits arrested for social media posts. In a post on X, Starmer said, any attack on democratic institutions or on the freedom of the press must be condemned in the strongest possible terms. He is a hypocrite. He is a complete hypocrite, and I completely agree. This is the thing I will always come back to. They were all happy with free speech until the interweb, until the internet, and we can all say what we want online and find out that we're not alone. A lot of people think that like we do. Fine with free speech when you're just you shouting to a few people in an isolated place, but as soon as you get online and you can actually spread it far and wide, that's when they've got a problem. It's about the narrative control. Now, I seen a video from Toby Young of the Free Speech Union and former Prime Minister Liz Truss talking about free speech in Britain, and I want to mention a few things. They're on the money, however it doesn't go far enough and it needs to be caveated slightly, so I want to get into this now.
Do you think ultimately in Britain we need a First Amendment?
Yes, I do. It's been so important in protecting free speech in America, and when you make the case for it in the UK, the argument is, well, we already have Article 10 of the European Convention on Human Rights, which protects freedom of expression. Well, it's better than nothing, but it's pretty heavily caveated. There are all kinds of exceptions, and there's a kind of, a balancing exercise that the European Court of Human Rights carries out in deciding how important protection of free speech should be in the round. The First Amendment is much clearer. Congress shall pass no law. It's a much more powerful, robust protection. I mean, the First Amendment hasn't always been the First Amendment. It took the right Supreme Court justices to be appointed. And actually, as you say, I think had Kamala Harris won the last presidential and had some opportunities to appoint new Supreme Court justices come up, then you can easily see the First Amendment being eroded in the United States. So just passing something like, introducing something like the First Amendment here wouldn't be enough. We'd need the right judges in place.
This is the issue with the right judges being in place. At the moment, government has no say over the appointments of judges in this United Kingdom. This is because we are drifting away from the fusion of powers that we are meant to enjoy in the UK to a separation of powers, which is why the Supreme Court was created in 2009, and the judiciary actually appoint their own judges, and they have to think a certain way, which is the lefty liberal worldview. And if you have a contrary opinion, well, you just don't get them invited to be part of the Supreme Court. That's the way it currently works. That needs to go, and the law lords need to be reinstated into the House of Lords. The Crown in Parliament is the supreme authority in the country, and that's what it needs to return to. At the moment, we have a layer above Parliament that says this is lawful, this is unlawful. Look at the Rwanda plan, for example. We had a Supreme Court implying that Parliament was acting unlawfully or the government was acting unlawfully. That shouldn't be the case, or if it is the case, the government should be passing legislation to curtail the power of the Supreme Court. It shouldn't be able to dictate policy. This is just my opinion. Your mileage, of course, may vary.
As well.
But we do have the concept in Britain of parliamentary sovereignty, so we don't have the separation of powers. I think the point is that Parliament would need to keep renewing.
Yes.
And also, you'd need a government with backbone to go in day one and say, this is what we're going to do, and you'll need to legislate to protect it. At the moment, we've got a henpecked Parliament that is dictated on high from whether that's the ECHR, lawyers abroad, lawyers in Britain, the EU, and the Supreme Court. They all dictate what Parliament should be doing. Parliament at the moment is not supreme.
The First Amendment, because no Parliament can bind its successor.
Yeah.
So you have to keep the flame alive.
Yes.
In every Parliament. But a starting point would be for a new government elected in 2029 to simply pass the equivalent of the First Amendment as their first act.
Yeah.
She is hiding onto nothing here that can't be done, because they'd run into similar roadblocks to the Rwanda plan with processing asylum seekers in a third country. Because the ECHR, or large chunks of it, is actually domestic law now, thanks to Tony Blair, it's been baked into British law. You'd need to repeal the ECHR, so we're no longer part of the ECHR. You'd need to unpick the Human Rights Act of 1998, and you'd need to repeal that as well, because that incorporates large parts of the ECHR into British law. And you'd also need to legislate to say that moving forward, any precedents that were set with rulings in reference to the 1998 Human Rights Act need to be struck, meaning that future judgments by the judiciary cannot use that as a frame of reference, and any common law judgments or precedents that have stemmed from that need to be struck. And then you could introduce something like a British Bill of Rights. I would have it reasserting the Scottish Claim of Rights and the English Bill of Rights from the 1600s, reasserting those rights and freedoms for all British people, and then introduce a First Amendment into a British Bill of Rights. So she's dumbing it down here, she's not being specific enough. You need to do all of what I've just stated here, and then maybe would have some similar protections to what our American cousins enjoy. We'll continue.
Yes, we need to win the argument. We need to persuade the British people that free speech is important. They should care about it. They should defend it. If we can win that argument, then I think it would be very difficult for a successor parliament to reverse a Free Speech Act passed.
So we'll leave this here. I do think here Starmer, his instinct is to clamp down on our freedoms. His instinct is to get rid of jury trials. His instinct is to ban X and to say the only the pre-approved script from governments is the recognised truth. Anything else, and you're a far left or a far right bigot.
Soldiers! That man is the terrorist! I order you to shoot that traitor! Liar! Faker! Fraud!
These are my views. Now, as I say, we do have historic rights that need to be reasserted. The English Bill of Rights of 1689 late 17th century, after the Glorious Revolution, which deposed James II and offered the throne to William and Mary. And Scotland has the Convention of Estates and passed the Claim of Rights in 1689. So they need to be reasserted in full, in my particular view. This curtailed the rights and powers of the monarch through Parliament and reasserted the rights of the Scotsmen and the Englishmen in their respective countries. All of this needs to be reasserted. The government needs to be reminded that they're there by our pleasure. They're not there because they're a career politician. Ultimately, they respond to us and we can vote them out. And this is the thing. The test is going to be this week in Great Yarmouth with Great Yarmouth First, the party that Restore Britain is backing. They've had a great turnout this weekend, and obviously that message initially was amplified on X and it was amplified on the internet. If government is going to curtail what we can and can't see online, then that's going to have major impacts not only for Restore Britain, but also potentially Reform UK as well. Now, if a reforming government or a restoring government get in 2029, this should be the focus, obviously getting rid of the dinghy divers and the fake asylum seekers as well, but reasserting our rights as Englishmen, Scottish men, and everyone in the United Kingdom, alright? They're only there, the politicians, to safeguard our freedoms. They shouldn't be taking them away. As always, your mileage may vary. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up, give me a like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. You take it easy.